Adventure cycling might be about getting away from it all, heading to the hills and leaving your worldly worries behind. But that shouldn't stop you from getting the most out of your GPS computer. I'm here with founder and coach from Rowe and King, Matt Rowe. He's going to talk us through the top 5 tips for setting up your GPS cycling computer for adventure and gravel cycling.
I'm going to talk you through the key bits of data to have on your head unit, which bits of data you should be capturing, and critically, what it all means.
While most of this information is most relevant to those of you that use a handlebar mounted GPS computer, you can also replicate most of the functionality through a smartwatch. And as always, I'd like to thank our sponsors Garmin for helping us to produce this video. And number 1, we're going to kick things off with Climb Pro. On any ride, regardless of discipline, you're going to encounter some hills. But when it comes to gravel and adventure riding, you're almost certainly going to face some fairly fierce ascents. Now, Climb Pro is a Garmin-specific data screen. But more importantly, Matt, why should I have it on my computer?
Yeah, well, climbing is probably the hardest part of cycling and often has that fear factor associated with it. Now, Climb Pro basically spells out for you when a climb is coming up, so you can kind of prepare for it, and critically how long the climb is, average gradient, and even the profile going up the climb, where the steep bits are and where the shallow gradients are. And while Climb Pro is really important for road riding, probably even more appropriate for gravel riding, because some of these climbs are going to be off-road, loose gravel under your wheels, so your wheels could skip and you could lose traction. So making sure you're anticipating these changes in gradient, which your Climb Pro is going to tell you, make sure you're in the right gear for when you turn that hairpin and the road really kicks up. And also it's going to help you pace your effort as well, because of course we all know what it's like going too hard too early on a climb. It gets pretty tough, so enabling you to pace your effort so you can start these climbs steady and finish them strong should lead to you getting up these climbs in a more efficient manner.
Or at least I'll know when it gets too steep and I know I can get off and push. I really can't be bothered.
Absolutely.
Number 2, we're going to cover distance to your next destination. Now, when you're riding off the beaten track, there's an increased chance that you could get lost, especially when you're riding on the kind of dense fire roads that make up most of the gravel riding here in the UK. This makes pre-planning any kind of ambitious route critical before you head out for a ride. But how can we use distance to next destination to kind of better inform my riding?
Yes, distance to next destination or the next waypoint I think is really beneficial, because it tells you, when you've got to pay attention to an upcoming junction. So if you know the next turning is in 5 kilometers time, you can relax and just enjoy the scenery, enjoy the adventure. However, if your Garmin device is telling you the next waypoint is in 200 meters time, alert, because you're about to make a turning. So it just tells you when you need to be alert, helps reduce your chances of getting lost, and just helps you then enjoy the ride.
So in a time when we're once again allowed out of the house and we're out racing on gravel bikes again, I guess you can use this as well to pre-plan something like feed spots on a race or that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and even nice viewpoints, vantage points. There's a nice view of a lake that you can see on Google Maps before you start the ride. Plan that into your ride so you don't just flash past it and miss it come event day.
Now, number 3, on a similar note, we have the route map. Do you have any kind of tips and tricks we can use to basically better use the route map on a GPS device?
Number 1, just seeing the general direction that you're riding in helps you accurately predict where the wind's coming from. Obviously the wind can change in a given day, but if you're kind of feeling really good and you've got a tailwind behind you and you're heading in one direction and you're going to turn, then you're going to get a headwind. So just having that basic information helps you pace your effort and enjoy the ride. But also, if you suddenly need to get to a local town for a bit of food, you can easily do that on your Garmin device. So just think of it as like a sat nav in your car, sat nav for your bike, help keep track of where you are, and you can also pop to the nearest petrol station to get a sandwich if you need.
Yes, eating some depressing, slightly soggy sandwich make up many, many of my most treasured cycling memories. Now, competitive gravel riding is very much defined by long distance events compared to your typical road sportive. And speaking from my personal experience, pacing those but also feeding yourself through those can be a genuine challenge. Now, I have noticed, and more advanced Garmin bike computers, you can actually get notifications for when you should eat and drink. How can I use these to kind of better plan a serious effort in something like a race?
Yeah, so you have nutritional and hydration alerts that can either be smart-based or scheduled. So your Garmin device will get to know you as an individual, and it'll prompt you when you need to be eating and drinking, and that can be based off your heart rate or your power. So it knows how much effort you've applied as to how much food you should be taking on board. And it's something that I think most of us are guilty of, is not fueling appropriately. And of course you can get away with that for the first, if it's a short ride, an hour, 2, 3 hours maybe. But as soon as you tip into that 4th and 5th hour for most, that nutrition and hydration that you adopt in the first part of your ride really comes into play. So it's just a way to help ensure you are fueling appropriately.
I've done some really long rides which have been absolutely miserable because I've typically not drunk enough. So I think it's definitely something I would like to adopt, because it's very easy to forget these things when you're sucked into either just trying to finish the ride, or if you're having a nice time, enjoying everything around you. And it is genuinely easy to forget to drink.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now our 5th and final point, and we are going to stick with racing here, going deep into nerd territory, but looking at something like your power numbers and your heart rate can help you track your effort and keep you on track throughout the day. Now let's say I was doing an event, something like the Dirty Reaver, which is a 200-kilometer off-road gravel ride. What kind of heart zone would I want to be staying in for the length of that ride?
Yeah, so you're definitely, for these super endurance events, you're going to really want to be staying in what we call zone 2, which is a very kind of a aerobic effort. Intensity is very low. And starting off in 200 kilometers a day, it's easy to get carried away. The adrenaline is pumping, and perhaps you plan this event for a long time, and you're just excited. Keeping a track of your heart rate and your power, all it does is kind of rein you in. And that's the most important thing to do early on, is make sure you don't go too hard, so you can start the event steady, then finish it strong. Because I think a lot of people are guilty of overexerting themselves early on, and then blowing up or bonking towards the end.
Particularly if you're chasing a group right at the very start, because it's so easy to get caught up in the hype where there's lots of much faster people in front of you.
Absolutely.
Now if I was a more dedicated racer and had access to a power meter system such as Garmin's Rally power meter pedal system, what could I use on my computer to help me pace the effort throughout the day?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately average power is a good measure, as well as your current 3-second power. And what you want to try and do is get a view in training as to what power you can sustain for a long period. That might be as simple as going out for a 4-hour steady ride and seeing what power you average. And then come event day, when you're tapered and you fuel really well, you might be able to sustain for 5 hours that kind of 4-hour training pace. So it's just going to help you pace that effort using power.
Once again, thank you very much to Garmin for making this video happen. Thank you, Matt. I will be going away and playing with my Garmin immediately after this. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon, so every time we upload a video like this, you'll get a notification.